Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Atlantic Tales, when we'll remember community activist and author Dermot Hayes, who passed away on January 3rd at the age of 71. Last weekend, we heard the news that well-known community activist, advocate, radio broadcaster and author Dermot Hayes had passed away. In the days since, the widespread response to Dermot's death has been incredible. Such was the mark he left on people, particularly those he thought to help. I met Dermot at his home at Old Military Barracks in Ennis in September 2025 to record a short segment for Atlantic Tales about his autobiography. The plan was to record 25 minutes and include it in an episode along with another Clare author. As was always the case with Dermot, he loved to chat, and so as long as he kept talking, I let the recorder roll away. It was well over an hour later before I hit the stop button, but I knew I was documenting the story of a fearless warrior. While that chat was originally focused on his autobiography, we talked about much more than that. We chatted about the man himself and his life growing up in Kells Corofin.
My earliest memories of growing up in Kells Corofin is going out to the neighbours regularly, really. That was kind of a free-for-all. We could go in and out there, a number of them, not just one neighbour, but a number of neighbours really. And the neighbours were very good with us really. And we had a small house and stuff like that. And going to the bog, obviously, and making the hay with the neighbours. Sowing the spuds. My father was very keen on sowing spuds and being accurate about it. You had to have an accuracy in the spuds, the end on the spuds. If you were wrong, he shouted at you like really, And then growing the onions, and that was a great memory there. And I had brothers and sisters, and you played with them like in the spare time. You played a bit of going up to the crag and making cubby holes and all that business really. And you played a bit of hurling or football really out in the field with Jerry and Eddie and Liam. And there was Benny, of course. So we played with them. We had one or two neighbours as well, male neighbours we played with as well. But that was good fun, really. That was quite good, really. And in the autumn, obviously, you went and picked sloes and you picked nuts and you picked mushrooms in late August, like, really. So we did, that was a seasonal thing, right? So I'd be bragging about picking the first mushroom. That'd be a great brag. Collecting the eggs in the morning, that was great. I might leave myself with that. And the hens were up in a corralled area, and they had their own box and stuff like that. And one of the things that we did with the hens was we test them, we'd put our finger up their bum, see if we're going to lay an egg.
Okay.
That was fun, really. I mean,
was that the dumb thing? Was that what you had to do? I mean,
no, we did that out because we learned.
You were bold.
Yeah, bold. Yeah, we had to learn how to. We kind of know in advance that the hen was going to lay. Like some hens wouldn't lay during the day, like wouldn't lay at all. Wouldn't lay for 2 or 3 days, maybe. You know, especially coming in autumn, like that season be up. But we'd obviously want to find out if they're going to lay at all. So we on the watch then that they're going to lay the hen.
Okay.
Eggs were very valuable. Like we'd no bathroom or anything. You know what I mean? We'd nothing, no toilet till I was 18 years of age. That was the reality for us. And we weren't the only one. No, I understood really. A bathroom was a kind of a bit of a luxury, right? Really, you know what I mean? But when my sister got married, then my elder sister got married, her husband was very creative, like really, and he was pushing that thing all the time, like And obviously, as my sister was getting married, there was a thing I need for the bathroom because they'd be coming home, like, and you would want to let the family down, like, to have the bathroom. Mm-hmm. Because it was normal in England to have bathrooms, like, really. So that was, but we did, as I say, the bog. We did the bog up the backyard, we had a big pit dug out. So we made our business in there, like, you made it into the po at night time. That was common enough, really.
That's the way it was. That's the way it was.
Yeah.
And things improved as years went on. What about school? Do you remember much of school?
Oh, I do. Regularly in school. Oh my God, I was in lower classes. The national school with Miss Minehan, and she loved the singing, but we were crows, and she'd let you know you were a crow, like, you know what I mean. You couldn't sing, and you had the good singers, and you go at the back, and then she'd have the tuning fork, the tuning forks, and we'd screech out something, but she'd hear us, and oh my God. God Almighty. And she gave out to us, really, you know what I mean? And
But the books in school generally, apart from the music?
yeah, I liked reading, and I liked the books, and I liked the English and all that business. But I wasn't great at the maths, really, you know. And then when you went into Nacy, then the headmaster, he was the first thing he'd ask you in the morning, he'd go over the maths and make sure that you had your maths and your homework done for the maths, sums, and he'd ask you a calculation or something like that, really, you know. And if you didn't, he'd go, psh. Yeah, he was hard going now. But he had his good days, like, really, he had his good days. We recognise that he had his good days. But he had his very tough days with us, really, you know. And anyone that from a certain background got the worst, I felt they got the worst of it, really, you know what I mean? And my brother Liam got belted a few times, and other brothers and other guys that I knew well, like from, you know, lower working class backgrounds, they got belted. If you were from a particular background, a shopkeeper or a professional son or daughter, you got away with a lot of stuff like that.
Did you incur his wrath at any stage?
You did. You wouldn't have your homework done, or you might have your copy dirtied or something like that, really, you know, because my mother was trying to, in all those jobs that she had to do, trying to help us in the evening, like, really, you know what I mean? Trying to get the English written. I love the compositions now, you know, I love the composition. A day in the bog, or a day in the meadow, or a day, whatever, like, you know, a day at the seaside. Well, we were never at the seaside. I was there only once as a young lad. But you make it up, like. So that was good fun, making up all that kind of stuff, really.
Living in fantasy,
yeah,
in a way?
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, you had to, sure. Where would we be going? With no car. And West Clare Railroad stopped in 62, yeah. So I think my aunt brought me when I was young, very young, to Lahinch. And I just remember being told about it after, with the blonde hair and on the train. I must have been late 50s, because I was born in 54. I must have been very young, really, at the time, really.
They find out where the engine's been hiding, and a drag just a sweet or a thin. Says the guard, back her down on the siding, there's the goods from Kilrush coming in.
In school, Dermot, did you have an idea what you might do with your life? Were you looking ahead that far at all, or living in the moment?
No, we weren't looking ahead at that. No. We weren't even thinking about secondary school, you know. We didn't. No, we were used to the land and the farming and all the business and stuff like that. No, I didn't have any notion of that. But I did like writing. I did like the English, and I liked books, really, you know. But I didn't have much access to books anyway, really. Despite the fact the library was down in the village, we didn't have much access. We didn't go to the library as kids, like, didn't it? So that was interesting. And I loved the radio as well, like, you know what I mean? Because my father had the radio on full time. And there was great conversations on the radio and stuff like that. You know, the wireless, we got the wireless, yeah. So that was good fun, really, and listen to the wireless. And Sunday mornings, and you had Kieran McMahon on Sunday mornings, and we loved listening to him, really, you know. He was a great radio presenter, definitely, yeah. And he was easy to listen to as well, like, you know, and he was clear. So while you were eating your breakfast or getting ready for mass, as I say, right? And then, obviously, you'd have the Shanachie then, later on, I don't know what day of the week it was, even the man from Kerry, and he used to tell great old stories, like great stories. I used to love the stories as well, like, you know.
Even as a young fella, sitting around the radio?
Oh, yeah.
Would the family have done that? Would all of you have done that?
No, but you'd be there doing whatever your homework, whatever, like, you'd be listening to that, really, you know. It'd be on, really, you know. Or you might be eating your dinner or the breakfast, something like that.
On the background?
Yeah. Well, if it was a very wet day, you'd be inside, of course, yeah. You wouldn't be out too much, like, really. You know, because you'd be getting wet. It was a desperate thing. Because you're not close to change, maybe.
Yeah.
Not close to change, that was the life.
Secondary school?
Secondary school was the bus, the new education, free education came in. And the bus came by our door, really. Gompers Whelan from Tuna. He came, so that was a great asset to us at the time, really. So that he took us all around Rouen, Bearfield and the whole lot, and we met lots of friends along the way. And, you know, over 5 years, you'd gather them up, like, really. So then we were into school then in the Tech, community college, like, at the time. To the Tech at the time, to me, like, really. And you had some great teachers there, right? You know, Lyons was there, and Farley was there. And then O'Callaghan, the Middleworth teacher, he was the tough one now, Callaghan. He was a very tough teacher, really, you know. He had no patience on anybody, really. And then you had Early from the Tuller Road there somewhere. And he was a good teacher sometimes. Mostly he was a good teacher. And he was a good man to do drawings and the whole lot. So I enjoyed him now as well, because, and then Farley was very good. And then you had, I can't remember his name now. He was good. And Jim Lyons was good now as well. Jim Lyons was doing a kind of not general knowledge kind of thing, but he was doing kind of a awareness of the world, really, awareness of the world, right? Which included a bit of religion, but awareness of the world. So that was quite a good subject, really, you know.
Did you finish out secondary school?
I did the Lebenswert, yeah.
So many people of your era probably didn't?
No, none of my siblings, none of my male siblings did the Lebenswert. They left at third year, or Eddie left at second year, for example, right? And I finished out because I had been in hospital when I was 12, right? In Ennis Hospital, and then I was in Croom when I was about 15, right? So as my mother used to say, the invalid, you know, I was the invalid in the house. So they excused me from certain jobs, like, really. So that's why I went to school, went to Lebenswert, yeah, I got on. And I loved the secondary school, now in fairness, I loved the secondary school, really. And you had Wilco, Larry Dewan, Wilco we used to call him. And we had Flaherty teaching English. And I enjoyed those now, really. I learned a lot from those guys, really, you know what I mean? I wish I'd be more concentration. And then there was women, girls chasing girls. Complete distraction, yeah. Yeah, total distraction. And then uptown then, and you get going into Abbey Street there where they were selling single cigarettes for a penny or something like that. Cigarettes, and you got hooked on that and you didn't want to. But everyone did it, like. And you went out the back of the school as well, and you had a puff as well, like, really, at 11 o'clock. That was common, mind you. Good crowd of lads that stand out the back of the prefabs and have the puff of the fag, like, which, you know, they wouldn't do today now. You know, they wouldn't do today. And uptown then, and during the Lebenswert then, because there was long gaps between the exams, you went in for a pint, or somebody got you a pint or something, or tried a pint. So you had a pint or two. And I remember going back to the woodwork exam, and I had 2 jars and 2 pints in. And I was quite doddery, really. I couldn't concentrate on it. I freaking failed that exam. I didn't want to fail it. You know, the drawing.
Were the teachers aware that you were having a sup?
I don't know, really. I don't know how to know, really. You know. There was 2 of us, anyway, 3 of us doing that way in the class. I had the late Paddy Farm was in it, Paddy Mayer was in it. Another guy, Jack Castle, was in it.
After secondary school, had anyone a plan?
Well, I had a plan not to do manual work, really. I had a plan I'd dream about doing something, but I went to Studio Eyewear for a year because I saw an ad in the Sunday World was just come out around that time, around 72 or 73 maybe, had just come out, and I saw an ad for electronics in Tivoli, County Cork. And that excited me, like, really, you know, very excited. So I said, I must do that. I made up my mind, I must do that. And there was a fee attached to it, so I had to earn the fee. I had no money. So I went to Studio Eyewear for the year where my 2 brothers and my sister had been working, and a couple of cousins had been working over in the studio. And that was a great factory, really, you know. Willie Lahav used to bring us in the car because he was working there. He was in the office area. And we loved that now, really, because a bit of crap, but it was hard work, really. It was hard work. Buffeting frames, that's what they call it.
For the glasses, wasn't it?
Glasses, yeah. Buffeting frames, yeah. There was a lot of people working there. There was up to 200 people working there, definitely. And they were all working in different areas, really. But it was well regulated now from the point of view. You had your lunch at a certain time, you had your break at a certain time. And no bother, like, once you did your work and you got paid and all that. And while the money was okay, like, really, you know, I managed to save €300. And I went off down to the interview down in Tivoli in Cork, and I got it, like, really. Tivoli now, my brother lived in Cork as well, which was handy enough, like. But it was down Glenmire Road. I went the following autumn, and that was very hard. Jesus, you did learning about diodes and all the colour codes and all that business, and resistors and all that kind of things I never heard of before, like, really. We did Euclid way above my ability to understand it, really. I need a lot of training and stuff like around that, on understanding of it. Some guys managed it, but I don't know how they managed it, but they managed it anyway. And then the exams, we were sitting for City and Guilds, right, with the hope that you'd be a radio operator or something like that, or you could work in telecom, or you could work in boats. And people had gone to work in boats, or gone to work in Germany. So that was the big attraction for me, really, you know. P&T was out at the time, so you could have worked in P&T if you were lucky, really, you know. So the exams, the City and Guilds were set out for Christmas, right? Christmas exams. So we did the City and Guilds and the whole lot, and it was very tough, very tough. But anyway, Come January, there was a big article in the paper, Tivoli in County Cork were scamming the students, right? That it was all a scam. The exams were all a scam. They were all made up, really, you know. My heart dropped. I'm absolutely devastated. Devastated now, really. I'd been staying with my brother and my sister now, and they were very kind to me in Dublin, Ireland. But to find that after spending €300, that these guys have scammed us, really, you know. There was loads of other, they were there for a good couple of years and they had got away with it, like, really. And it just happened to be in my time that they were caught. Somebody caught them. David, I still haven't got over it, really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had to
You had worked so hard to raise the money to go and do what was possibly a dream job at the time.
My dream job at the time, yeah.
And fell apart.
Yeah.
How do you get over something like that, and what did you do from there?
I got onto the train. I got on the train then, and I headed back up to the Monday or Tuesday, I think, Monday or Tuesday. And I got up, and I don't know how I found this now, but Manpower, I said I better go into Manpower, get a job, right? The Manpower was across in the main post office in Ennis, right? I can't remember his name. A nice guy now, nice, lovely guy now. He was Paul, he could have been Power himself. But he said, oh, right man, right place. He said, you know the colour codes, he said, right? Which I was risking it, right, really. So he said, the job going above in Intertronics, he said, above in the Hermitage Showgrounds, he said. So I went up there and I went in and met Kevin Neville at the time. And Kevin interviewed me, and your man rang ahead that I was coming up, and he rang Kevin Neville. And Kevin asked me the colour codes and the whole lot, and the resistors and all that kind of stuff. And he said, oh, you're a technician now, he said. We'll put you in the technician line, which was a bit of a status, really, you know what I mean? There was technicians and there was lower guys working in the line. So yeah, I took it, of course I took it. So I stayed with Jerry and my brother down in Panelsridge. They were newly married, Jerry and Martin, they were newly married. So I got a job there. I stayed there for 2 or 3 nights until I went home then, really. And I liked the Intertron. I liked the Intertron an awful lot, really, an awful lot. Because there was loads of young people there like myself, lots of young people there like that. And then after a while there, a year or two, I became the supervisor. So Eugene Phillips was in charge of the floor. Kevin was the boss man, and then Eugene Phillips was in charge of the floor. So I liked that job, right? But there was targets. You had to have targets, right, really. And to nearly all women you were working with, really. You know?
Coming up, we'll hear how Dermot found his way into the world of trade unionism in the 1970s, fighting for the rights of his fellow workers, which in turn led to a life of activism and advocating for others. Welcome back to Atlantic Tales. Today we remember community activist and author, the late Dermot Hayes, who grew up in Kells, Corofin. After school, he worked for a time in Ennis to save the money he needed to travel to Cork to train in electronics. While in Cork, he learned that the exams he had taken and paid for were a scam. This left him devastated. He returned to Clare, and while staying with one of his brothers in Ennis, heard about a job at a local manufacturing facility looking to expand its young workforce. After a few years there, Dermot was promoted to a supervisory role and became active in trade unionism, later leading a massive workers' march in Ennis in the early 80s. He also led a sit-in at his own workplace after staff were told the facility was closing.
About a year and a half, 2 years after I joined, the trade union came in then, right? And I was elected. I couldn't believe that I was elected, but I was elected as a shop steward. And Colin Thomas, you might not know him. Do you remember Colin Thomas? No. He was a great community activist. So anyway, he was there. So I got elected, to my surprise, really, you know, because there's little things like we wanted. We were happy enough, effectively. We wanted an extra couple of days of holidays, like, really. Yeah, that's what happened, really. That's what happened, really. I was looking for better conditions, extra holidays, really, and longer breaks in the toilet, you know, 10 minutes instead of fucking.
But did you believe that you were the type of person who could possibly gain inroads into getting what?
Yes, I did. Well, I did, because I'd been in the youth club as well, and I was a leadership role in the youth club as well. So that stood to me as well, like, really, standing out and raising your voice if you have an issue, like, really. So that was good, really, and yeah, we learned an awful lot of things, and Colin Thomas was great to me, really, because he pushed certain things. And then, at the time, then, companies organised their own wage structures and negotiated their own wage structure. So we were in there in negotiating with Kevin Neville for the extra 5% or 2%, really, you know what I mean? So we did that for 4 or 5 years, actually, like there. And that was a good experience because we're in there now, hammering the table and getting extras. And then there was staff then that were doing different work. They wanted a bigger increase because of the nature of the work. If you're working on soldering on the soldering machine, right, that was a lot, you were dealing with a lot of heat there, really, and the stress of that and all that business. So we did that. And if you were a driver, then you got extra money as well. Like. So we did all that, really. And I was shop steward. I was the only shop steward to the whole into the time that was. They elected me each time. So, and then we went on strike one or twice. Not strike, we went down to support Danish Cash Company workers at the time in 1982. And there's a PAYE march in 82 as well. So there was 5,000 people in the square in Ennis that day. I couldn't believe it. And I had to make a speech. Frank Prendergast, who was the regional trade union ITW guy at the time, he made a speech as well. So Ennis had no branch office, so we opened the branch office in 80. So I was in Interton in 74, and by the time 80 came, we opened the branch office, which is a huge achievement, massive achievement, yeah. So I was involved in doing that, really, myself and a couple of more guys that were there around in various industries as well, like, really. Industry was very big at the time in Ennis, very big now. We had all the industry, you had the Packlin, you had the garda set, braids and the whole lot. A lot of industry in Ennis at the time, seemed to. And you have the one down here, the Kidrush Road, Interstretcher. So there was a lot of guys working there, and they were all in the union. That was a big achievement, really. They were all in the union. Because trade unions in the 70s and early 80s were big, really big. And then when the time came to say, the recession came in the early 80s, and a big factory closed in Cork. I think just Ford closed down. And then in Limerick, they closed, big factory closed in Limerick as well. And then Interton closed. It was devastating, absolutely devastating. Eugene Phillips brought us in one Friday, and he said, "We'll be closing tonight," he said. "You'll be getting your last wages." We were just absolutely devastated. So I hopped up on the table. Now I was able to hop up the table that time, the canteen table, and I said, "We're taking over, lads." Yeah, and everyone was for it. I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people were for it. But a lot of people say in the country area that would be farmers' sons or daughters, they can, "Yeah, I agree with you, but I must go home." You know what I mean? Cows to be milked and all that business. So a good few people stayed now, mind you, as well. So we took over that night, and the following few nights I was wrecked after it. But Eugene Phillips came to me and he said, "Don't interfere with the security man." And he's a nice guy now, John was his name. "Don't hassle him, like, really." And we know him, like, we were friends with him. But he has his job to do, like, you know what I mean? So he was there, not on the time, but most of the time. And the guards came around as well and stuff like that. So we kept an eye on things, and we said we were taking over the factory. And then there was an offer from a mysterious person who we never actually really found out. It happened in Flan's Bar down in town. I was brought down into a back room to know would I agree to all the stuff being taken out in a lorry so they could be stored away so you could sell it later on to make the wages. And I was nervous about it, really, you know what I mean? An offer like that, and they reckoned maybe it could be from the IRA. We weren't sure what it was from. 2 or 3 gangsters, could be gangsters. So I was invited down, and they said, so I said, I have to think about it. I said, it's a big decision, really. So they came up along anyway, and I couldn't keep it to myself. I had to tell Eugene Phillips. I just couldn't keep it to myself. I couldn't allow that to happen. Because to be bad for my name as well, it'd be bad for the whole group as well. Like, if we don't know where they were going to leave that stuff or they're going to come back to us. I never met him before in my life. So it could be risky, too risky.
Yeah.
So anyway, Interton closed in May of 83, yeah. I was devastated after. I was wrecked after that. Devastated I was. I'd been living in town here with another comrade of mine.
And what did you do after that? When you accepted that this job was
I got on a bicycle, my bicycle, I was named my cycle, and I cycled around County Clare. And I went home then, and I crashed at home for a few days, and I was wondering what the hell I'm going to do. So when I got the energy up again and recovered a bit, I went back into the union office and met Colin Thomas, and he said there's an offer there for somebody from Clare to go to UCC college to study cooperatives, right? So I said, I think that's for you. He said, really, you should go. So I went down to the interview anyway in Cork, in the university. Loved the idea, loved the whole idea, absolutely loved it. It was my favourite thing I ever did in my life, really. Went down there and we started in September. And we had Mary Lenihan and another guy doing the tutoring, right? And you had guys then in the course there from various backgrounds. I was a trade union guy. There was another guy from a cooperative in Leitrim and another guy from a business centre. And there was 2 or 3 women then from North City of Cork working in the community, like really impoverished. So we had a great old gathering. The 10 of us, there was 10 of us, I think, yeah. Great gathering. So we learned an awful lot, really, you know. So we had the first semester over Christmas, and we came back to the second semester. And by the time we came to March, then we had to go on placement. And this was all free now for us, really, all free. We had to go on placement. And I was on the dole as well at the time. I was able to draw the dole. And same with my sister at the time, actually, yeah. She had moved to Cork as well. So I was lucky. Rent was very cheap and all that business. So my first placement was in Sligo, one of the free papers there. So I was in there in the office, working with those guys, 2 guys that were running it. And they were lovely, nice guys, nice guys. I'm still in contact with them. And we learned how to draw up ads and go out and canvas for ads and the whole lot. You know, communications wasn't that great. It was just a telephone. If you had a telephone, the other end you were lucky, like, really. I mean, that just had it. So you had to go on foot around the town, like, of Sligo. And I love Sligo, like.
While Dermot sold advertising for that free publication in Sligo, he never delved into the world of journalism, despite his love of English and writing growing up. However, many years later, during one of his numerous hospital stays, the idea came to him that he should write his own memoir.
I knew I had wanted to do something. I was thinking about that, really. And I had daughters at the time, like, and I wanted, because they had no idea of the life I had. They wouldn't have. They're living in very cosy, all that switches switched on as well. You know, they had phones and they had television, the whole lot, the toilet and everything. We had none of that as children, like, really. So it was a totally different ball game. And then we were born in the country, they're born in the town, the 2 girls. So they had no idea of that, of walking to school 2.5 miles. You know, when the kids were young, embarrassingly, I'd say, we drive them to school, down to the national school, from here, which is only a couple of 100 yards, down to St. Flannan's. That was, I feel ashamed of that now, saying that, but that's the way it was, really. They wouldn't go to school without I driving them down. They wouldn't walk down the road, like, you know.
So the book was a way of telling the story of growing up in a certain era in a country area.
Country, yeah, very much so, yeah.
So 15 years ago or thereabouts, when did you start putting pen to paper? The idea was in your head and you wanted to put the book together. When did the hard work start?
Oh yeah, I went to hospital in 2000 for the kidney setup, really, in 2000. So I was thinking of doing it that time, really. And I said, geez, I wouldn't be able to do it my own now because my spelling would be bad occasionally, you know. Could be bad. So I said, when I came out there and I started doing it, really, so I contacted Breda Shannon, and I knew that she was a good writer, and I'd read about her somewhere along the line, and she came on board then, really, you know, and we started, and she was great, absolutely great. She was great for teasing me out as well about issues, like, really, the small little things, really, you know what I mean? When you were in bed at night and the whole lot, the 4 or 5 of you'd be in bed, and you'd want to be yap, and my father would give out to us, he'd come in and give out, go to sleep, and then if someone peed in the bed, nobody would own up to it, like, you know what I mean? Somebody would blame somebody else for peeing in the bed, like, really. That wasn't that common, but we did it, like, people peed in the bed, like, children peed in the bed, so that was good. And then obviously the whole question of the neighbours, knocking on the door, just walking into the house, and you could see Lynn Road or something, you know, on a Sunday evening, and a Holly Lahabdin would drive us. The neighbours were outstanding, absolutely outstanding, yeah.
You had the story in your head.
I had all the story in my head.
You were making notes or writing it down, but she was getting the extra bits, the bits that you might have forgotten.
Yeah, I didn't want to say or I didn't want to... Well, she opened up my mind, the whole idea, really, about the youth club. So for example, the youth club was great, really. A great experience for me, because when I think back about it now, really, the youth club was a way of getting out of the house. We took the youth club as a personal organisation ourselves. So we had to sweep up and the whole lot and repair things ourselves. You know, hammer a few nails here and there. Like. So you bring the hammer and the nails in with you, and obviously fix up the table tennis table. And then we organise a bus if we're going somewhere out to Milton Malbay or down tennis. Aina, whatever the youth club was, right? So that was great fun, really. I'd organise the bus and the whole lot, and you tell the people and you organise the people to come to and the whole lot, and remind them then to come. I did all that kind of work, yeah. That was organisation, detail organisation. I close the hall, open the hall, and keep the hall clean, because the parish council would be strict about that, really. If you didn't want to pick up the hall, like, anyway. And then obviously you had the card games, and you had all the other games, and then you had inter competitions in the youth clubs. You entered various national county competitions, won chess a number of times, and with a couple of good guys at chess, really, and we had drafts. So all those had to be organised, and they had to be written down and all that business. So you had to keep a track on those guys and organise the bus for them to go to the games in Ennis. Generally it was Ennis, yeah, obviously, play the games. So that was good fun, really, But you had to take it seriously. You couldn't, because nobody else was going to do it, like, unless you did it. That was my feeling at the time, right, really. So I suppose all that learning that I did, then obviously, and from a big family, things had to work as well, and you had to have the people motivated as well to do it. Mm-hmm. So we did all that. And the certain people that promise you to do things and they wouldn't do it, really, I found that hard to take sometimes. Oh, I'll do that, not a bother, and they wouldn't turn up.
So all those experiences made it into the book. Breda would have drawn one or two
drawn things
on the back of the brain that she didn't want to talk about. But putting the book together, did that take a number of years then?
2-3 years, yeah, definitely 3 years, definitely.
Did you know it would take that long?
But I did a bit of research, you see, as well, on my mother, on my mother's people. The most shocking thing in that book is the fact my great-grandmother was in the workhouse in Corofin. Now, the story in our family were told, or generally told, that our great-grandmother had gone to America with her husband, right? And they had my grandmother, my mother's mother, and none of that true. My great-grandmother was a Protestant. She had married a Catholic, which is very unusual at the time in Boston, out in Boston there, right? And the neighbour shunned him and the whole lot. And as a neighbour, he had cattle and stuff like that. And he had an awful job selling the cattle and stuff like that. And then he went to several fairs, and he ended up getting drunk and obviously causing a row and all that business, right? And he was in several courts. He was in 6 Mile Bridge, he was in Ennis, he was in a few other courts anyway. So he was put up. So that none of that I knew about. I had researched all that, and I talked to cousins over in Boston, and they had some bits of it as well, like, So I was glad I did that now for my own sake, because I had none of that history, really. And none of my family had that history. So that was a great revelation, really, But I didn't do the same on my father's side, because as far as I was concerned, my father had a big family. They're a small little farm, really, down in Killamona, and they didn't have none of that difficulty, really, And I knew my father's people, a lot of my father's people, really, But as regards my mother's side, Jesus, it was quite shocking, really, that they ended up in the workhouse, Corofin, and then she ended up as a servant at the age of 13 for Kinney's shop, and they had a farm in Corofin, Kinney's, and then by the time she was 22, she headed off to America. And when she got on the boat and when she went off to America, in Ellis Island, there was no one there to meet her. Before 1919, you had to have someone to meet you. And then after 1919, you could go in yourself, like, as an adult, like, really. So my great-grandmother's uncle, he was supposed to be able to meet her. He'd forgotten about the whole thing. And so she turned all the way back again. I felt, my own observation was that she became very bitter as a result of that, really. Coming all the way back, and her whole dreams were gone, like, So she came back and she worked back in the farm again, and then there was a match made for her. A nice guy, nice to her, but he died in 1942, and so she was a long gap before she died. She died in 62, so they had 5 kids, yeah. So she reared those kids, and they were sent off on their journeys. Most of them to England, except Matty, my uncle Matty, stayed in the farm. So my mother had gone to England, nursing. Nursing was a big job for Irish women, right? So I opened up all that can of worms and read about it. But the fact my great-grandmother was a Protestant was quite a shock to me, really. Absolutely, yeah. I hadn't realised that happened, that there was serious trouble. Like.
Coming up, we'll hear more about why Dermot Hayes decided he would write his own memoir, and how he was already working on his second book before his untimely passing. Welcome back to Atlantic Tales. Today we remember community activist and author Dermot Hayes, who passed away in Dublin last weekend. Dermot led an extraordinary life, helping other people, and despite his own health issues, never gave up. His volunteer work, all for the betterment of others, began when he was a teenager in the youth club in Corofin. In his working life, he first got involved in the trade union movement in the 1970s and was one of the organisers of a massive workers' march which filled the streets of Ennis. His activism knew no bounds as he fought for disability, traveller and human rights as well as environmental issues. He also ran in the local elections in 1985, 2014 and 2019. Dermot was also an author. His first book, The Road That Rises, tells the story of growing up in Kells, Corofin and life after school. He credited co-writer Breda Shannon with coaxing stories from him that he had forgotten or didn't necessarily want to talk about. Dermot suffered health issues from a young age and spent time in no less than 6 different hospitals. This was going to be the subject of his second book. For The Road That Rises, he carried out a lot of research which turned up information he wasn't at all aware of, particularly about his maternal grandmother, and also about the family home in Corofin.
It was an agricultural house, farmhands, right? They were all built, if you look around the county, cottages like that were built in around 1910. Breda had pulled out the information, and there was a guy there, Fox was his name, and he was a farmhand. We never established, presume he worked for the Nealans, that they were surrounding the land around, when there were Sullivans before she married Nealan. I presume that he worked for them, right? But his health got very bad, really. So my father negotiated somehow along the line the house with the idea that my mother would look after him. And then he ended up in St. Joseph's, and he died, I know what year he died. He died around 1949 or 51 or something like that, really.
When you started the book, did you have an idea of what time frame, what era you would cover?
No idea. Well, I wanted to cover my life, and I wanted to cover the whole trade union stuff, really, as well. I did that to some degree, but...
so not just growing up in Kells, your whole life story?
My whole life story, yeah. And my health as well. I mean, I was in hospital at the age of 12. I mean, a guy called Michael Bert, I think was his name. He brought me in and stuff like that. And the hospital, the funny thing about the hospital was that, you might not remember this, but the men smoked in the beds, and they had the bottle of stout as well. And I was the young lad inside, right? And they'd ask you to go and get the pigeon. The pigeon was what you peed into, right? It's in Clare, it's called the pigeon, and in Cork it's called the duck. And the matron was a Kilnavai woman, really. She was Hogan, a big, large woman, yeah. Blue uniform and a white hat, and she was the boss. And she'd come along the beds like that, and her finger like, and she looked at there was any bit of dust or that. She called the cleaner, shout down the road, and she managed the doctors when they came in. She told the doctors what was what, really, you know. And the needles at the time, when I flued my knee, right, flued from the kick in the shin, and the needle were as big as your thumb at the time. So they had to put the needle into my knee, and they had to have 2 or 3 people holding me down because of savage pain, absolutely brutal pain, really, really. There was no anaesthetic, if I remember now, no anaesthetic. So you had to get the needle, and they put a plaster of Paris on me. And then they let me home after a few days, and when they came back to take off the plaster of Paris, anyway, there was a guy well known in Ennis anyway. He was to cut my plaster off, right? And he said, I'm too busy. He said, go home again. He said, come back in a week's time. He said. So I went home anyway. And even in that week now, when you're trying to cycle a bike, cycling a bike was very important to us, right? If you want to get to the village. So cycling a bike, you had one leg up here and you had the other leg in, and you were trying to push it around, and your leg became, as you're growing up, disjointed from your hip nearly, you know. So that was tough. So I developed a limp then. I didn't limp in my leg when he took the plaster off. And after another 2 years, I ended up in Croom, and they had what is called growing pains, all right? And Croom was a different animal, a completely different animal. You were in a line of beds there, and there was people from all over the Midwest region. I had my legs up in splints, up like that, with weights in them, right? They called growing, I had growing pains according to the doctors, yeah. So anyway, the doctor came in anyway, I won't mention his name. He said, we'll walk up, he asked the nurse to put a line cloth on me, you know, a G-string, and he put it on. For a young man of 15, maturing, like, embarrassing, like really. So I had to walk up and down the ward in front of everybody and to see could I, was my limp bad or what was it like really. So I had to do it. I'd never forget that piece anyway that time. Jesus Christ. The food was good there now, mind you. The food was good, but it was run by nuns. And my mother used to send me a weekly letter with the gossip, which I'd find it very hard to read, right? Because she was a nurse, as I said, and she'd, long writing, and she'd seen the 10 bob. But the shop used to come around, Paddy the shop used to come around the wards with his little trolley, yeah. So that was good, really. So I went home after 2 months. I was there for 2 months, yeah, summertime. Yeah, that was interesting. And then I got the bottle of stout.
Putting the book together, collaborating with Breda, and you get to a point where it's time to publish. But how do you get yourself published?
Well, now, I was fortunate that I had been working a bit of radio, community radio, voluntary in Limerick some time before, a couple of years before that, and I met a guy called Dominic Taylor. He was a printer, right? I interviewed him, and I remembered him. He was very nice, really, very nice. I felt very nice. I felt very relaxed with him. So I rang him anyway, and he was very enthusiastic. He had 300 and something books done already, and guys like me, single guys like me, he wasn't into a book that was going to explode around the world. Like he was into books where people get done, that live in their community and print in the community. So he agreed to do that anyway. So I set up I had Gay Hanran came on board, and we set up a GoFund, which is great, really. I ended up getting €7,000 for €6,500 for the GoFund. So that covered my cost, no bother, like really, So I was delighted with that. That was simple enough. I had all that dealt with then. And so we sent in drafts into Dominic, and he changed small little bits and pieces. But he was delighted with Breda's writing the whole lot, and the story. The story was good, he felt, really. And then the name of the book then, because he suggested the name of the book, and the picture, he got a picture, and the picture is out on the Inchy Quinn Road outside Corofin on the way over to the lake. So we hadn't even thought about that, really, the picture, so he had all that done. He knew he had the picture in his office. He thought it was a bit best, so we agreed with him, obviously. The road that rises. It made sense. He was definitely very good, very good. And when he came to the launch and the whole lot, he was excellent, really, as well, the end of the night, really.
The launch must have been a big night. Well, it was a big night.
It was a huge night, massive night, beyond expectation. Some of my siblings thought, geez, you might have 50 there, or 30, Jeez, they couldn't believe it. It was the timing as well, It was the day of my wife's birthday, the 4th of March, which is all about the timing. It was 6:30 in the evening, which suited a lot of elderly people as well, including my sister as well, who came over from England. And she was 80, she was helping to launch the book. And so was Patrick McCormick. Two great people, two great people to launch the book. And they were a bit of music, and the hall filled up. I couldn't believe it, the hall filled up. People had been turned away from the door. Could not believe it, really, massive. I still find it, get my head around that, really, The hall can hold about 300 or 400 people. So that was fucking just magic, really, And I was nervous, obviously, very nervous as well. So Breda spoke and I spoke and Dominic spoke as well. And we filmed it and the whole lot and all that business. And we recorded, Radio Kirkboshkin recorded as well. So we did all that. So we did everything. And we sold on the night 200 books. We printed 1,500 books. So we sold 200 on the night. That was just blowing my mind. I couldn't believe it. Absolutely.
Why did you leave it so late in your life to write the book? Because the stories were there from years and years before. Was it because, as you said, that time when you were in hospital and maybe you had time on your hands?
Yeah.
But you could have written that years ago.
No, but I mean, kids were growing up and all that business, and I was working as well. I was working in a national organisation. I was going flying around the place. No, I felt it was good timing for me to do it. I felt definitely it was the right time for me to do it at the time, because I had retired.
But was the idea brewing in your brain?
It was brewing a long time.
Years
it was brewing. Definitely. I wanted to write something about it, to get it down, really. Getting the whole thing down about the no toilet till I was 18 years of age, no water coming into the house, all that kind of stuff. Which was I realised was rare enough, really in the 80s, really. There was a lot of houses that had water and toilets, and we were the late comers, really. 70s, I'm talking about 70s, I should be saying. So we were the late comers, really, after that. We got great help as well doing that, really, My brother-in-law was great from England, Andrew's husband. He was great support and stuff like that. So my father would be nervous about it, really. And then Holly Lahab, our neighbour, was very good as well. And there were a lot of good people there now, really, that would help us out, really. And Paddy O'Dell helped out with electricity and all that business in Corofin.
big community effort.
Oh yeah, it was great, really.
And they all came out then on the night for the launch.
All came out for the
Other
launch.
families at least, maybe not.
Yeah. I just still can't believe that the amount of people turned up, really, you know. I'd met people for years and years, you know, people that had travelled far, you know, neighbours behind books, had travelled a long way down from Dublin and other places to come to the launch. Just unreal.
It makes it all worth it because, as you say, 3 years or 4 years of hard work putting it all together to culminate on a wonderful night out. Is there another book in you?
There is, yeah.
Was there always another book, or is there
No,
one
I just
on the back of
realised
the
that
success?
I wanted to do another book on the basis of my hospital. I went to 7 hospitals in my life, right? 7 in Dublin, 2 in Dublin, 2 in Cork, 2 in Limerick, and Ennis, really. And, you know, when you think about Ennis at the time in 1966, and the status that Ennis Hospital was built in 1940s, right? And my aunt and my uncle worked there as well. My uncle was a painter at the hospital, Neddy, and my aunt was a laundress in the laundrette. So revealing all that, that'd be interesting itself. And the one in Finbars, and he's saying to me, to my brother was there, he said, I can't do anything with you. I said, I'll have to send you home, he said. I was very crippled with arthritis at the time. I'll have to send you home. My brother, no, he said, we'll send him somewhere else, they can deal with him. So they sent me to this South Infirmary, where I met a guy that had been in the Vietnam, in the boats from America to Vietnam, a doctor, and he recognised it straight away, ankylosing spondylitis, HLV, B27 in the white blood cells. He recognised it straight, and I almost felt cured straight away, once he had stated what it was, like, really. And so he knew what to do on the whole lot. So that was a massive relief. I was nearly 21 that time, really. I was just 20. That was a massive relief for me. I mean, I had to take time out of work and everything like that.
So the next book will tell the story of your health, an issue with your health, and where you were treated and where you weren't treated, and all of that. At what point are you in that?
Oh, I'm researching. I'm got very busy researching now. A lot of researching. Oh, definitely, And I have a co-writer there. I can't tell you the name yet.
So you're well down the road. How important, Dermot, do you believe it is to tell those stories, whether it's the story of growing up in a rural country area or the story of a very personal part of your life, your health?
Yeah, I mean, I'm from a big family, and it wouldn't be expected of us, you know, working class family, to have do that writing, really, you know what I mean? Just go back to the road that rises. I met a guy, he lived in America. He was not Corofin man, but he'd been home for years and years and years. He was in Corofin at the show, and I met him, and he read my book, you know.
A worldwide reach. So there could be books all over, because people might have
I met Dr. Bamji the other day and his wife, and met him for a good while, and they're reading my book, you know, which is interesting in itself, like, really, you know what I mean? I printed 1,500 books, And now in his bookshop are brilliant to me, absolutely outstanding. The percentage was reduced, because I was saying I was giving the money to charity, and I gave the money to 2 events, really, the Hall in Corofin and the Clearly the Forum. I gave a good bit of money to Clearly the Forum and the Hall in Corofin. So that's very important for me. It wasn't about the money, it was never about the money. It was about getting the story out. That was the critical thing for me, really, getting the story out for my daughters. They were my 2 main people that motivated me,
For somebody who has, Dermot, no matter what age they are, someone who has a story within them that they want to tell, but mightn't know how to go about it, what would you say to them?
Well, a story, if you want to tell a story, get a ghostwriter. The Clare Volunteer Centre was very good to me now, and supporting me on that front, really. Then obviously check out people that be interested in writing, right? And they get you a ghostwriter. Really. That's in the second book, not in the first book now, but in the second book, that's what they did for me, really. And they helped me get a ghostwriter, because I went through a good few people till I got this woman, right? So she was agreeable to do it. But yes, it can be done. It can be done. And there's writing classes as well. You can do that, really. You know what I mean? I mean, if you don't feel confident in putting sentences together or spelling, which I wouldn't have been confident in spelling now, and the sentences. I like writing, but wouldn't be confident in doing that. I'd make a hames of it. You know what I mean? So I was nervous about doing that. There's regular writing classes here in Clare. Regular writing classes,